All right, folks. I wanted to take a quick second to talk about product discovery. Now, I've been active on Reddit for a long time. I've only recently started using Reddit a little bit more professionally to talk in startup spaces, to talk in customer success spaces, to talk about kind of the work that I've been doing and the work that I've done, and engage with other members answering their questions. And I get a lot of outreach from this, which is awesome. And a lot of it is from aspiring developers or people looking to build products, especially in the CRM space. So, like the Salesforce, HubSpot space tangentially, and also in the startup space, and especially in SaaS, so that software as a service space, where you have a lot of very intensive customer relationships and a lot of work between customer and product and your product teams. Now, just to talk real quick about the tech stack going on here. So the experience that I remember the best is there's a sales CRM like Copper or Salesforce, and then there's an onboarding CRM or an onboarding platform. My personal favorite being Basecamp, where the post-sales team works directly with the customer to set up their project, and then that goes into the larger, more proper, for lack of a better term, CRM, typically Salesforce, but also HubSpot or things like Tatango. And then that also can feed into something like Gainsight or something more specifically customer success focused. And so the thing about this whole tech stack, just to kind of talk about like high level, the biggest challenges you have with this, it's clean data is the number one challenge forever. So you want your sales notes to feed into your onboarding notes, to feed into your long-term relationship, to feed into your Gainsight. There's that kind of like 4-point feature where you need those notes to carry over. And then also there's actual integrations, whereas like a task is completed or a box is checked off in one platform, you want it to go ahead and talk to the others. So I say that, it's pretty funny. I laugh immediately because that's not only the biggest challenge, but that's the place where things break the most. Because I named 4 or 5 different platforms, 4 of which you would use typically at any given time at any given company. And that's not even getting into the internal knowledge base or the internal platforms or any of the other stuff. And the biggest problem with all of these is every single one of them has a core gap, which is why you need more than one of them. And all of them do a very bad job of talking to each other. And just super quick, when we're talking about AI tools in general, that's kind of the biggest obstacle, right? Like, I would love a tool that will transcribe my YouTube videos, draft a LinkedIn post for me so I can take that raw text and put it into that, or vice versa. That'll transcribe my posts and then put them into a script I could use for a YouTube video or tweak for a YouTube video down the road. Something kind of cross platform your different projects without having to do multiple work, right? But one of the biggest challenges all of these startup tools have is communicating between platforms. And most of the people that I've been talking to, they're doing the very reasonable, very correct advice they've been given of finding a single problem, a specific problem, and trying to fix that or build a tool that fixes that. And in general, that's great advice and works really well. But coming back to that tech stack, I mentioned that 4-piece suite, and that's only a very kind of high level, very basic variant of your SaaS CRM or customer facing, customer journey, customer experience tech stack. And if you think of that, one of the biggest problems already is multiple platforms that don't talk to each other well. So a lot of these folks looking to break into this space are making the very reasonable call of I'm going to find this problem that exists in SaaS and I'm going to make a tool that fixes that problem. That is not the approach that's really going to be successful. And the reason I say that is because the biggest problem, again, is the number of holes within the big platforms and the number of platforms themselves. The last thing anyone needs is another platform that does some of this. What we really need, quite frankly, is a better Salesforce, a better HubSpot, a better Tatango, a better tool that does all of the things. And what I really want to see from this AI development piece is I want Salesforce to build out a really good prompt-based integration tool that lets me say, hey, I've got this task that I'm going to keep doing in templates in Basecamp. How do I get that to go into log into Salesforce and get it logged as this touch point? An actual chat agent that could do that cross-platform is the thing that everybody really wants. I don't want another chat agent to tell me what it can't do. I don't want another meta chatbot that tells me it can't read my messenger history and flat out refuses to give me my Wi-Fi password, even if I wrote it 3 lines above that just to test it. Now, I get for security reasons it's not supposed to tell me my Wi-Fi password, but come on. Um, and that I think is actually one of the biggest frustrations with people and AI tools. Your average general user hits walls with this stuff because you go into it thinking, oh, it's really fast, it's really smart, it can do this thing. And then it's like, oh yeah, I can, paint your toenails, but I can't, tell what color your socks are. A really basic example. Like The places where it hits walls are boggling and frustrating. And every single time I talk to somebody working in this, I'm like, hey, do you integrate with Gmail and Slack and Microsoft, which is practically impossible to come to market with all those integrations. But if you don't, your market share is extremely limited right out of the gate, and there's very little you can do. And all of this goes back to all of these tech platforms' biggest problem is already that the individual platforms don't do enough. Don't do it well enough, don't do it cleanly enough. They don't do all of the things we all need them to do. They have no intention of adding these for whatever reason. But then also the little guys don't have enough access to actually fill in those gaps. So we've got people holding up patches for ships that they don't have, and then we have ships full of leaks with no intention of patching them. And that's kind of the entire SaaS tech stack challenge right now. So huge shout out to companies like Posthog out there who are literally trying to fix everything, which is a great company for that too, by the way. But it's a really difficult conversation to have because you look at this conversation we're having here, you look at this message back and forth. Email, you mentioned email integration specifically. What did you need that Basecamp couldn't do? Automated status emails, email tracking, something else. Um, and it's all talking through, let's see, as a full-time onboarder, how much time per week were you spending on writing, sending emails to customers, updating customers in progress, admin tracking work? All of that stands out immediately as what every single AI developer is trying to do to fill in these gaps. And it's the same things that all AI developers are trying to do, and it's not the things that will actually save the most functional time for CS teams. If I had my wish list of AI tools for like a full day tech stack customer success manager, number one, clean data search. So I could go into Salesforce and say, who are the top three lead contacts for this company? What are their email addresses? Can you go ahead and pop that in an email for me? And then can you give me a 5-line summary of our conversation history for the last few weeks? And the thing is that as a good customer success manager, I will then draft the email or I'll write it myself. Like I don't want it pre-drafted for me because that'll be, iffy. But based on the existing relationship I already have, if I see the names, if I see a little blurb about our conversation history, I will remember exactly what I need to do and I can go with it from there. But what I actually need it to do is pull up those basic data points for me, pull up those basic things, or say like, hey, what are the tickets we've been working on? What are the support escalations for them? And if it could just bring that to me from my existing data inside Salesforce, gangbusters. That would be amazing. And that is what I need it to do. And then we go a little bit further. Imagine I'm doing like a executive level quarterly business review. I need their metrics. I need their platform usage. I need their strategic goals from the beginning. If I could just have a chat bot, I could be like, hey, check our notes. What were their goals? What has their usage been? How close are they to their goals? When there's renewal date? What is their contract amount? All of this information to just have it feed into the quarterly business review template, build out the QBR template, pre-prime the email in the introduction here, have the links handy with their escalations and a quick status update. Like there's so much here that AI can do that it's really good at. And I have not seen a single AI tool that actually does those things. I see a lot of AI tools that would try to replace me in the support chat, or would try to replace me in the email feed, or would try to just replace the CSM in general, but not the things that make CSMs actually work really well and do the work they do really well better. And I love these discovery conversations. I love having them. I love talking about what I've done and what could be great, but we keep hitting this wall, both the developers and I and the big players and I, trying to figure out how to actually make the product and the process better, how to actually meet the needs of the industry. And both players are missing something key that each other has and they both need. It's, it's a pretty funny circular conversation. And I wanted to go ahead and shout that out. Shout out to Cypher on X on Reddit. If you're looking for a onboarding specific tool that uses AI, go ahead and talk to Cypher on X. He's got something cool in the works. There's some pretty cool stuff here, like things about the no login required. Basecamp was an incredible, extraordinary tool that I absolutely love. More base camps in the world is just a good thing. It's a really streamlined, very basic tool that's designed to have a really good project management picture that's accessible both to your customer and internally. That does have some automations that feed your CRM and feed in from your sales cycle too. That saves templates that can be reused. So a new customer gets, boom, this bucket. So there's a folder for their uploads, a timeline and checklist of tasks with who's responsible on each side, and there's a chat so you two anybody involved can actually actively check in on the status of this project. Basecamp is awesome. And I really wish that it connected better with other things or that Salesforce was as approachable as Basecamp. Um, but I don't need a new tool that does the same things. I need the existing tools to do things that they don't now, or I need a tool that does the things that they don't, that also does the things that they do. And that's the big gap there is you can't patch the holes without rebuilding the entire thing. And either you have the runway to do the entire rebuild on the outside, or someone internally is able to do it too. So this is where we keep end up getting. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure to highlight that. So I did just to answer these questions real quick. So we're talking about this first question. We're talking about when you say shared live with customers. So did I share? Let's see. So did customers actually follow the steps, actually do the onboarding steps? And generally, yeah, customers did. Like, and that's where Basecamp was so good. There was an incredible ease of use. It was very accessible. Customers could jump in and just use it. And 9 times out of 10, I found customers comfortably went along with the task within the timeline and were really good. Let's see. And I found that it had huge advantages over email. So why we can't just do this in email, because conversation pieces, attachments, tasks, timelines, all of that gets lost in email threads. Email itself is an insufficient tool for setting up SaaS. Basecamp adds in like, here's your static chat. It's searchable. It's shared with everyone. Everything is right there. But then there's also an attachment screen, an upload screen, and the actual timeline screen. So it's just a slightly more robust platform that's just as easy to do in the chat. Like the actual conversation piece is just a chat room. Very basic, no frills, no whistles, no signatures, nothing. It's just the conversation. And then that timeline and the attachments piece are all there static. They're not moved by the chat. They're not shuffled around anywhere. They're in the same place at all times, accessible to everyone who should have access to them. Fantastic. Love it. Great project. Um, yeah, it's still my gold standard for virtual project management tools. I love Basecamp. And then CRM integration. So I talked about, so he said, you mentioned email integration specifically. What did you need that Basecamp couldn't do? Automated status emails, email tracking, something else. And this is all very much what AI chatbots generally do well and what they're basically all built to do. That doesn't fill any actual need. Um, any of this stuff, automating outreach, it's fine, but you have to be really, really careful with that. Not only is that not the most time consuming thing that CSMs are spending time on, but also it's one of the most risky things to automate because you can really mess up with a misfire. Um, because if you're automating anything customer facing, you got to be really sure it's going to work and do the thing you need to do every single time. And then in terms of the full-time onboard, how much time per week, breaking this down into number of hours wasted. And while I appreciate that, my answer to that was, and so I said CRM integrations, like I talked about earlier in the bit in the piece. Basecamp, the only weakness that I personally saw in Basecamp is it didn't communicate cleanly and well with Salesforce, or Salesforce didn't cleanly or reasonably read Basecamp. So you ended up copying over notes from Basecamp into Salesforce and vice versa, so that it was just laborious having the full conversation and project history, which should be the thing that travels with the customer from platform to platform. And that is something that an AI tool could potentially do, just scrape Basecamp and put it into Salesforce. Like there's a use there. So I talked about CRM integrations and then emails and written messages. And so I said that communicating, and so this is the difference though, is this person is reaching out saying, how many hours did you spend composing messages and talking to customers? And I came back with 60% of the role was talking to customers, even though hours varied. So I didn't give an hour number, I gave a percent of the day number. But they're coming at that as like, all of these are hours we could save by automating your messaging. And I was coming at that as like the bulk of the role should be talking to the customer. So opposite approaches. Um, but yeah, it was still interesting to talk about that. Some of that could certainly be automated, and the pre-drafts are handy. I do really like inbox management tools. I don't like automated outreach tools. Um, yeah, something that's triggered by an action. So like I complete a checkbox in, so say for example, there's a task that's waiting on me before the customer takes the next step. When I check that, having a message go out saying, blah de blah has completed this task. It's now your step. Go here to go to the step. But that's not even an AI tool. That's just a straight up notification in the app itself. Like that's not new, but it's handy. I like that. Um, and then so I talked about the double work. So copying over the notes from Basecamp, the conversation history, the attachments, the milestones in the project. Copying those over from Basecamp to Salesforce takes a lot of time and it's frustrating. And if you didn't do it, you were missing core parts of the relationship that you might need later. Or that if somebody else took over that account, they would need at some point to see how things happened, where the roadblocks were to make sure they understood the full process. And I talked here about this too. So conversations needing to be on multiple platforms is again probably the single worst thing in customer success or SaaS in any way. So right here, I said, say a customer reports a bug. That's a message received, acknowledgement reply where I let them know I got the message to support, message to DevOps and dev, create a ticket, log the conversation with a link to the ticket, copy paste the ticket into a CRM like Salesforce, and then usually copy the same thing into the dev and support tracking tools like Jira and Asana with backlinks to everything. So all of this stuff being manually put in different places, and then if something changes to it, having the changes and updates being manually added to the same places is an enormous amount of time wasted. And that's something that really could easily be automated that nobody talks about being automated. Or if I add a note to this ticket, it should update the notes in every single place where that ticket feeds from. So have this like octopus come out, like that kind of automation where I write a thing once, it goes to all the places it needs to go. Nobody talks about automating that, but that's one of the most important things. Like it's not automating an email, it's not automating a message to the customer, it's not automating a support response, it's automating the actual logging of issues to multiple platforms, multiple CRMs, um, which is a ludicrous amount of time if you're doing it right in most of these modern companies right now. So let's see. So he asked about Tatangos when he hadn't heard about it. I threw a little shade at Gainsight for the same reason. Like the same thing here is I don't like Gainsight because it's an extra platform on top of too many platforms already. Salesforce should be a little bit more robust and negate the need for Gainsight completely. That's my grumpy rant. Pardon on that one. Let's see. Talked about the double work. Yeah, and I just mentioned what the Tango and Gainsight were and what they were for. Then he asked if I looked at specific onboarding tools other than Basecamp, and no. And here I gave a little bit of a sassy response, and it was just the same thing I've said before. We don't need more tools. Nobody needs more tools. We need the new tools that we have to be better and replace large chunks of the journey. So if I have one tool that replaces two, that's good. If I have two tools and you add a third, that's bad. If I have two tools and you replace one of them, we're out of wash. So I need one tool that replaces multiple other tools to really get excited about this stuff. Let's see, ease of use. And there was a series of things. What is the highest priority? Let's see. Simplicity, so ease of use is what I said. Shared workspace, also important. Magic link, so you could access it without a login. That was a big one too. And then automated emails, like that's the thing that everybody wants to sell that you don't need. Um, and that two-way sync with Salesforce and CS platforms, that one's big. That one's really big. That's the biggest one for me. But if I had to pick one, if I had to pick a single one of these, the first one would be that simplicity, the zero learning curve. And so this, would that solve the problems you faced? And frankly, I mean, yes, this two-way sync is the only one that I was missing and the only thing that I really needed and didn't want. So if you make a Basecamp alternative, it has to have all of these things that Basecamp already has. And then if you want to make a better one, it would have to have this last piece. And then we talked about pricing, and this is a really interesting one where it's cost per user per month or cost per customer being onboarded, which that's an iffy one, or a flat rate for unlimited. And I had some feedback on that too. Um, yeah. And then we had a really good back and forth where there's an ask for other references. And I asked for, before introducing this to anyone else, I asked for a response to my responses. So I had the initial suite of questions, I put out answers, and I wanted to get a step-by-step answer on each of the individual answers to kind of get past the somewhat scripted conversation we'd had up to this point to get a real idea of what we were looking at. Um, and so the answer was the no login communication with customers is a good idea. Yes, that was a great thing about Basecamp. Like to give some accountability to customers with my solution so they could, for example, complete their tasks, attach documents, have overview of the over. Yeah, okay. So this right here is Basecamp. It just summarizes what Basecamp is. Um, Salesforce integration. At first, yeah, integration into it. So if you can make a tool that integrates cleanly with Salesforce, that is massive. If you can have it actually overlay and do the things that Salesforce doesn't do well, that would be gold. Um, and this right here, so I mentioned the amount of time spent, but I didn't necessarily specify that it was the reason for my response was that that is and should be a bulk of the role. And another thing I said is I sometimes spend entire days doing notes and upkeep and following up and like making sure all of my data was logged correctly. So I lost entire days of customer communication because I was cleaning up notes and copy pasting stuff to different places, which is that's what I need saved. And the conversation pretty much always goes to, oh, we can automate your outreach and emails conversations, which I don't need that automated. I need the other part automated. Um, yeah, so this is, and that, I mean, there's a case for automation there. It seems like that'll actually cover some of that. Let's see. This tells me that integrations are indeed very important. I also realized that with my two people, yeah, and so that here, so they're making a cool tool. It does some really good things. The use case is good, but it doesn't make sense to replace SaaS larger product suites because it doesn't replace them. It just adds something else that doesn't talk to, it adds something else with the same problems. This doesn't integrate cleanly with the Salesforce, and there's no good way to build that with a small team, something that integrates with Salesforce. Because frankly, Salesforce is a total mess, and talking to it is a level of coding that is should be unnecessary. And that's why I'd really love the Salesforce team to build that AI integration tool more than anything. I want them to have this host of tools that will let me bring in information from other sources. That would make me live with Salesforce forever, quite frankly. Um, if they had a way to let me use other tools to feed into Salesforce to meet the other needs, then this whole conversation changes. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, and I've definitely ranted and rambled a little bit here, but that's a really big for 61 days, 2 months, huh? Um, that's a really big conversation that's coming up a lot in the AI development and the startup space. And I wanted to go ahead and share that and talk through it a bit and have a little bit of that stream of thought, stream of consciousness. So if you are in the SaaS space and you want to build a tool that has a good market inside the SaaS space, you really do either need to integrate with Salesforce or replace Salesforce. There's not going to be a good market fit outside of that, in my personal opinion. I could be completely wrong, but if you have something that either is designed for smaller teams and can be a Salesforce and Basecamp together, that's one thing. But if you want to go for larger SaaS conversations, if you want to really use this tool or really make the tool that would actually meet the needs of a lot of these teams, you got to think bigger because looking you're not looking at companies that already use one tool. You're looking at companies that use a lot of tools and already are frustrated with how little they talk to each other. They don't need more tools, they need fewer tools. And so there that is the biggest challenge we keep sort of talking over that I hope to kind of relay. That's enough for now. More soon.